Why envision the future? A working desk meditation. Welcome. From a fellow traveler. Please open your meditation journal and write the keywords for today's meditation at the top of a new page. Why envision the future? Draw your empty circle, your point of focus on the top half of your notebook page. Trace over it with your finger a few times. I'd like to begin by sharing something quite profound, though often overlooked. Most people think the future is simply an inevitable continuation of the past, a string of moments tied together by habit, by circumstance, by the momentum of what has already occurred. We grow up absorbing this belief, that the future is something that happens to us. But from the perspective of ancient wisdom, of theosophy and Agni Yoga, and even from the whispers of your own soul, the future is something entirely different. It is not just a stretch of time, waiting for you to arrive, it is a realm of pure potential, alive, vibrating, and infinitely responsive to consciousness. The future is an open field that we shape, moment by moment, through our thoughts, our feelings, our aspirations, and our group striving. Why does this matter? Because it means that each of us holds an immense power. We are not merely passive observers of life unfolding. We are builders, creators, co-weavers of the evolving planetary fabric. Our thoughts are more than private whispers. They ripple outward, building subtle forms that attract energies, gather forces, and eventually become visible as the conditions we experience, individually, in our communities, and as a planetary civilization. This is why we must learn to envision the future consciously, with care, with love, and with a profound sense of responsibility for all of life on Earth. When we speak of building, we usually think of physical structures, homes, roads, institutions. But true building begins long before a foundation is laid in concrete. It begins in the mental and spiritual worlds, as thought forms, living constructs of mental and emotional substance, charged with the energy of our intentions. These thought forms magnetize circumstances, gather relationships, and even influence the karma that will make certain outcomes possible. This is why our first principle for envisioning the future is so vital. Build for the common good, with community in mind, not self. Many of us have experimented with what is commonly called the law of attraction, or have created a vision board to help us focus on our individual desires or aspirations for the future. We all work with the law of attraction, often unconsciously, to build our careers, relationships, and personalities. The law of attraction is a real force and is fundamental to envisioning the future, but I must offer a firm word of caution here. When our visions and thought forms are saturated with self-interest, they can tend to isolate us, and they eventually collapse under the weight of separateness. But when we build for the common good, when we hold visions of communities flourishing, ecosystems thriving, rivers running clean, animals and humans living without fear, we align with the vast evolutionary tide that is sweeping all life toward unity, coherence, and joy. Why is it so urgent now? You may be wondering, why place such emphasis on this now? Why focus on the invisible side of building when we face such tangible crises? Climate breakdown, social upheaval, biodiversity loss. Because unless we change the patterns of consciousness that created these problems, we will keep recreating the same crises, even if we shuffle the outer forms around. The state of the world is a direct reflection of the collective thought forms of humanity. And the future we fear, whether it's rising seas swallowing cities or vast migrations driven by drought, is not just the product of past emissions. It's the product of how we think about ourselves, each other, and our relationship to Gaia. If we want a different world, we must become conscious gardeners of thought, deliberately planting seeds of beauty, unity, and wise living. In most of our education, we're taught that the past causes the present. But from the perspective of living consciousness, there's another truth: the future also causes the present. What we see as our future shapes what we do now. If I see myself as a future scientist, I may study physics and chemistry today. If a community sees itself as a future eco-village, it starts planting trees and building water systems now. So if you look at what you or your community are doing today, it will tell you a lot about how the future is being envisioned. When we collectively envision a future of oneness, beauty, and thriving life, we become magnetized. We begin to draw to ourselves the people, ideas, and opportunities that make that vision real. I'd like to invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Place your hand over your heart. Take a slow breath in and out. Now quietly ask yourself, what kind of world would I love to see future generations inherit? How can my life become a prayer, a song, a building block for that world? Feel the warmth of that question radiate through you. This is my symbolic representation of today's meditation. I saw myself at the threshold of the future, projecting rays of light to come into manifestation. The past contains the forms of that which has come before. When you have completed your meditation today, please take a few moments to draw your symbolic representation and write your notes on any impressions you received. Trace over the symbols in the circle to close your meditation. In coming meditations and lessons in applied spirituality, we'll explore how to build these visions, not just in the mind, but in the subtle fields of Gaia herself. We'll learn to think like a planet, to design with rhythm and beauty, to honor both spirit and matter, to work in community with devas and the living earth. And we'll remember that to envision the future consciously is perhaps the most sacred act we can perform right now. Thank you for being here, for caring, for daring to dream a new earth into being.